I try to shed skin like I shed lives, peeling and digging like an examiner of the dead. These thin layers that separate the living and the dead have rooted themselves in me, the lotus mud of a darkened soul, made wet from tears of all I have lost, to peddle here the destination begun by greenness. I remember the South in a memory planted before I was born, in black and white images played out before me, growth flowing from the North, a backwards flow for a backwards time. The ghosts of the ancestors animated the corpse of the murdered spirits of the darkness, drove the gray babies through the mud and spite and ire, made them walk through the fire that burned many a body alive, their smoke choking the throats of the stopped-up ears. They were more than their flesh. The flesh will betray you. The body will lie. The body will die. But the spirit remains. The spirit remains. I too have ridden into a strange country, though the violence remained on the inside. But the body remembers. The body never forgets. The impotence of the present never forgets the impotence of the past. A grandmother needlessly rocking in isolation, metaphorically perfect in body and in mind, never forgetful, a beauty of her time, alone in a house she has created on the inside, facade and shape, a familiar refrain. But when she finally follows her own northern star, it is the outside that will not remain. When I ride by the house, it will be remarkably changed. With what I see with my eye, I could be considered blind. For though the mountains may go to their natural conclusion, I still strain to see the sunshine, the warmth of my own being. But when the natural has birthed you, it somehow holds you in the muck and the blood and desire of the past. A father who reached for the heavens on earth and forgot the black soil from whence he came, indeed forgot his very name, considered his base baseless, and the base became base in the shade of a false god. And she lowered herself to understand what had been left behind, to go into the dark womb where her world had been formed, to enter again into helplessness, a resurrection of a dead thing, or a continuation of the invisible bonds that God made, invisible strings in the air. Some would call this fate, others the Holy Ghost, or Spirit, if you were raised that way. I am often haunted by the holographic image, the spook who enters my doors without warning or permission. I see him less and less these days, less and less. I think he is more locked up in my mind's attic, if not my heart's. Desire is a funny thing, a flame that burns your insides out and leaves just a fine coating of gray to keep you warm. I can no longer live in the mere opposites of dead or alive, since the alive now appear dead, and the dead seem to be living. For when I see my Father's face, there now appears to be only two blackened holes where the spark of life should be living. They are the abyss that I know only too well, inhabiting it for 10 long years. But I had to crawl my way out, and still flailing, had no choice but to set myself on fire and let my ashes be carried by the winds of change. All that I have left behind, all that has been scattered here, a not-born baby named Sophia, call her wisdom, yet who wanted her here? I did in theory, but didn't have her here to help me. Children birth their parents into parents just as much as parents birth their children into children. But I am a child of wisdom, so I buried my baby in the mud of forgetfulness. I forget so I can remember what she taught me, even though it is buried in my mind, but never in my heart. She is still in me. See, all the tears that flow come often from her, a little seed that has grown and grown, a little freedom rider that lives on. She may be in the back of my mind, but ever she steers the reins of my soul. They are all riding. They are all behind the wheel of fate. The grandmother, the father, the mother, the child. They are all me, and I am all them. I am the spirit of all that lives on. I am the spirit of all that lives on. I am the spirit of all that lives on. All the spirits that haunt my life have been on every stop and start. They are what animates my art. The many faces of God. Faces without bodies, bodies without skin, but they have always defined the shape I'm in. This is the spirit case. I hold them all, so much so that I have become fat with the experience. I am indeed fat with spirits, so fat my flesh almost cannot hold them all, fattened because of the stories inside of me, the levels of pain, the purgatories of grief. I'm surprised I do not collapse, that this house doesn't tumble, doesn't fall down brick by brick is a testament to God's architecture. For they cannot have the house, these tenants, but they live here and live on in me, through God, from whom all spirits flow. The Creator knows about the in-between, or at least his Son does, man and God. He surely knows the truth by now, of what his sacrifice surely taught. One must often kill to live, so that's been killed can live again. In me I find a war being waged, my spirit's peace, but my mind's engaged. The case, it seems, wants to remain fat, but the spirit's had enough of that. It's no wonder I want to explode, to blow up, explode towards the heavens, a holy geyser, stories tumbling out like clowns, like holy fools who can't be contained in this black and sprawling theater I call a body. There simply is not enough room. It's SRO inside of me, but yet I must keep part of them in the expanse, but not at the expense of room for my own spirit, my own will, my own testament, my own state. The spirit of rebellion is in my own self-contained air. I am drunk with my own power, the power to steal away to grace. But it is a courage of numbers. It is the eyes in the dark of my soul that bid me go. Go forth and tell the story, but take us with you. For where would I be without what lived and died in the blackness? For the spirit of the blackened self has struggled too in this self-anointed cage. I resemble that which I am not, for on the inside I am as black as tar. But this, I suppose, could just be seen as keeping with all the ancestors. But like one side I must learn to hide, to store these stories in my breast, for in this house they'll ever rest. So I must learn to make room. So with these bones I thee wed, your lives in which you fought and bled, even those who don't know what side they're on. I'm storing your lives into my bones, not with a grinding crush, but a tucking in, a hiding, a safekeeping like an abolitionist would do for a runaway slave. I will make room. I will tuck you into the mud of my bones, womb of my womb, flesh of my flesh. You shall sprout through the lights of my eyes and the once rejected corners of my mouth, upturned for the first time, facing the heavens, growing north to freedom.